Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the channel. And today, I'm going to go my review of King of the Ring 1993. Starting off the evening, we're going to go to our first match of the night. It is Bret Hart versus Razor Ramon in a King of the Ring tournament match. Number one, I thought this was a great opening matchup for King of the Ring 93. Back and forth match between both Hart and Ramon, with Bret Hart keeping the pace of the match. Razor Ramon goes for a back suplex off the top rope, but Bret Hart ends up reversing it, turning it into a pin. And your winner of the match is Bret Hart. A couple things I want to say about this matchup. Number one, like I had stated, man, this was a great opening matchup for King of the Ring 1993. Bret Hart versus Razor Ramon could have main evented any pay-per-view at that time around the world. And to have that as the opening matchup for King of the Ring 1993, man, was absolutely fantastic. And hats off to Bret Hart for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It is another King of the Ring tournament match. It is Mr. Hughes versus Mr. Perfect. I thought this was a really good matchup too. Back and forth matchup between both Mr. Hughes and Mr. Perfect, with Hughes keeping the pace of the match. Also in the match, there was a huge botch by Mr. Hughes in this matchup. But Mr. Hughes goes to hit Perfect with an urn. Referee ends up seeing it, and your winner of the match by disqualification is Mr. Perfect. Hats off to Mr. Perfect for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It is another King of the Ring tournament matchup. It is Jim Duggan versus Bam Bam Bigelow. I thought this was a relatively good matchup. Back and forth matchup between both Duggan and Bam Bam Bigelow, with Bigelow keeping the pace of the match. Bigelow ultimately hits a diving headbutt off the top rope on Jim Duggan, pinning him for the 3, and your winner of the match is Bam Bam Bigelow. Hats off to Bam Bam Bigelow for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It is another King of the Ring tournament match. It is Lex Luger versus Tatanka. I thought this was a relatively good matchup. Back and forth matchup between both Luger and Tatanka, with Tatanka keeping the pace of the match. The bell rings. The match ends up ending in a time limit draw. And because of that time limit draw, both Lex Luger and Tatanka were both eliminated from the King of the Ring tournament. After the match, though, Luger hits Tatanka with the flying forearm and knocks Tatanka right out. But like I had stated, because it went to a time limit draw, both Lex Luger and Tatanka were eliminated from the King of the Ring tournament, which automatically put Bam Bam Bigelow in the finals of the King of the Ring tournament. So again, wish it was a clean finish, but unfortunately it was not. It did help out Bam Bam Bigelow to move to the finals in the King of the Ring tournament. But again, I wish we got a clean finish, because at this time, Tatanka was really on his undefeated streak, if you will. Lex Luger at that time was the narcissist Lex Luger, which honestly I was a big fan of, man. I think the narcissist Lex Luger was probably one of the best gimmicks he's ever had in his career. And honestly, for a clear-cut winner in this matchup, it would have made for a fantastic match. But like I had stated, unfortunately, it ended in a time limit draw. So, moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It's another King of the Ring tournament match, semi-final match, I should say. It is Mr. Perfect versus Bret Hart. This was a fantastic match. Back and forth matchup between both Mr. Perfect and Bret Hart, with Bret Hart keeping the pace of the match. And Bret Hart ultimately hits a roll-up on Mr. Perfect, pinning him for the 3, and your winner of the match is Bret Hart. Hats off to Bret Hart for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It is Yokozuna versus Hulk Hogan for the WWE Championship. I thought this was a relatively good matchup. Back and forth matchup between both Yokozuna and Hulk Hogan. Yokozuna was pretty much keeping the pace throughout the entire match. He ends up hitting a devastating belly-to-belly suplex on Hulk Hogan. Hogan then is hawking up. Hogan ends up hitting 3 big boots on Yokozuna. He also hits a leg drop to a 1 count. Camera guy is sitting above the apron. Ends up taking a picture. The fireball shoots out of the camera, blinds Hulk Hogan. Yokozuna then ends up hitting a leg drop on Hulk Hogan, pinning him for the 3, and your winner of the match, and at that time, new WWE Champion, is Yokozuna. A couple of things I want to say about this matchup. Number one, this was a really good match. To be honest with you, Yokozuna, big fan of Yokozuna. I mean, there would never be another Yokozuna ever in professional wrestling. And to be honest with you, I feel like, yeah, his career was cut short. Obviously, his life was cut short. Rest in peace to the great Yokozuna. But Yokozuna we had Andre, and maybe this is just me saying this. We had Andre the Giant. You know, he was a spectacle. You know, we'll never see somebody else like Andre the Giant, but we'll also never see somebody like Yokozuna. And I feel like after Andre had passed, here's Yokozuna, where this guy comes in 500 pounds, close to 600 pounds, and it's just going in these matches and just destroying everybody. I mean, obviously having the manager of Mr. Fuji, and with him working with Jim Cornette, Yokozuna was a monster. I mean, one of the best big mans, in the business. And a lot of people feared Yokozuna. I mean, I'm pretty sure a lot of those superstars probably feared with their life taking that bonsai drop. But he was just a freak of nature, man. Yokozuna, God rest his soul, man. But if he would have continued his career, maybe stayed in shape, whatever, would have happened in his life, Yokozuna would have been a multi-time world champion. In my honest belief, I mean, I think, stemming what his career was in the beginning when he became Yokozuna, and the impact and destruction that he was having in WWE at that time, I mean, I could totally see Yokozuna being, 10, 11, 12-time world champion. Just how they were booking him. And he can move relatively fast for a man that was his size. Now, he was a little bit bigger in size than, a guy like Bam Bam Bigelow or Vader. But Yokozuna could pull it off. And he did a fantastic job. And, just the presence of Yokozuna was just astonishing, man. I mean, that guy, every bit of probably close to 600 pounds and just, massive, but destructive. I mean, when you got in a match with Yokozuna, you knew what you were getting yourself in for, man. This guy was going to destroy you in whatever match you guys, whatever match he went up against with Yokozuna. Yokozuna 9 times out of 10 was going to destroy you. And, it's sad that we lost Yokozuna so early in his career and his life. But I'm telling you, man, if Yokozuna was still alive and he was still in the business, he probably would have been a multi-time world champion. Hands down. I mean, there'll never be another Yokozuna. So hats off to Yokozuna for getting the win in that match and at that time becoming the new WWE champion. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It is the Smoking Guns and the Steiner Brothers versus Money Inc. and the Head Shrinkers. I thought this was a good matchup. Back and forth matchup between both teams, with Money Inc. and the Head Shrinkers keeping the pace of the match. But Billy Gunn ultimately hits a roll-up, pins for the 3, and your winners of the match are the Smoking Guns and the Steiner Brothers. Hats off to the Smoking Guns and the Steiner Brothers for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It is Crush versus Shawn Michaels for the WWE Intercontinental Championship. I thought this was a good match as well. Back and forth matchup between both Crush and Michaels, with Shawn Michaels keeping the pace of the match. Diesel ends up attacking Crush with the referee being distracted. Doink is here. Crush is distracted by Doink. Shawn ends up hitting a super kick in the back of Crush's head, pins him for the 3, and your winner of the match, and at that time, still WWE Intercontinental Champion, is Shawn Michaels. Hats off to Shawn Michaels for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into the main event of King of the Ring 1993. It is Bret Hart versus Bam Bam Bigelow in the King of the Ring finals. Number one, I thought this was a good matchup. Back and forth matchup between both Bigelow and Bret Hart, with Bigelow keeping the pace of the match. But Bret Hart ultimately hits a roll-up on Bigelow, pinning him for the 3. And your winner of the match is Bret Hart. Couple of things I'm going to say about King of the Ring 1993, man. Number one, the King of the Ring. King of the Ring, to me, is always going to be synonymous in pro wrestling. It was one of the greatest, if not the greatest tournament in pro wrestling ever. King of the Ring 1993 will always be the best, in my opinion, the best King of the Ring ever. I mean, the first match, you got Bret Hart versus the late, great Razor Ramon. I mean, like I had stated, man, that right there could have main evented any pay-per-view for any wrestling company around the world. And it just was phenomenal. Then you have Curt Hennig, Mr. Perfect, versus Bret Hart. I mean, at that time, you have second-generation superstars. I mean, Bret Hart, the son of Stu Hart. You got Curt Hennig, the son of Larry the Axe Hennig. I mean, it was just insane. The stories wrote themselves, man. And I think, obviously, Vince McMahon really didn't know what he had at the time with King of the Ring. I mean, King of the Ring was so damn good. It really was. And obviously, there's still King of the Ring now in, Raw and SmackDown, but it's not the same, man. I mean, they went above and beyond with the King of the Ring. This is also the same kind of event and tournament that made Stone Cold Steve Austin what he is and what we all know of him from this day. I mean, when he cut that promo with Doc Hendricks, and he's sitting by the chair after he won the King of the Ring tournament, and he said, that great promo about Austin 316, that from that day on, it made Stone Cold Steve Austin. I don't give a damn who says what. That is the truth. And that was a great King of the Ring tournament as well. But 1993's King of the Ring, obviously it's the first King of the Ring, number one. At least that, WWE televised, I should say, I guess. I mean, obviously there's other tournaments that were out there. But King of the Ring 1993, man, was just synonymous to professional wrestling. For the match quality, the matches, Bret Hart winning the finals against Bam Bam Bigelow and having Bret Hart go through all these matches where Bigelow, because of the time limit draw between Lex Luger and Tatanka, Bigelow goes right to the finals. I mean, Bret Hart had to fight his way literally all night to get to that finals and finally beat Bigelow to become the 1993 King of the Ring. I mean, it's absolutely insane. Then you have the WWE Championship match. I mean, you have Yokozuna as a challenger coming in to challenge the champion at that time, Hulk Hogan. Where the fans gravitated towards Hulk Hogan, where there were some fans that gravitated towards Yokozuna, but you didn't know what you were going to get out of Yokozuna. And I was a huge fan of Yokozuna growing up, man. I thought Yokozuna, like I stated earlier, could have been multi-time world champion, an absolute legend in professional wrestling. There will never be another person in this industry, in this sport, that will duplicate or have the same look as a Yokozuna and pull it off the way Yokozuna did. Yokozuna is an absolute legend, one of the best big men in professional wrestling, hands down. But unfortunately, we ended up losing him too early, and he passed away. So God rest, Yokozuna's soul, man. It's just gone too soon. 100% gone too soon. But this was a fantastic pay-per-view, man. And like I do with every single one of these pay-per-views that I review, I always give these pay-per-views a rating from 1 out of 10. I'm going to give King of the Ring 1993, and this might be me being a little biased here, but I'm going to give it a solid 8, 8.5, man. This was a great pay-per-view. The matches, the quality of matches, and the quantity of matches were great. The match order and how they booked the matches was fantastic. Obviously, having King of the Ring be the final match. The championship match between Yokozuna and Hulk Hogan was absolutely fantastic. The opening matchups for the tournament, Bret Hart versus Razor Ramon. You got Curt Hennig versus Bret Hart. I mean, absolutely fantastic. Not counting Lex Luger versus Tatanka. Like I stated, I think the narcissist Lex Luger was his all-time greatest gimmick, in my honest opinion. But this was a fantastic pay-per-view, man. I'm going to have to give King of the Ring 1993 a solid 8 or 8.5 at best. But this is my review of King of the Ring 1993. I hope you guys are out there staying safe. Be careful, and remember, stay classic. Peace.